Sunrise on a small apartment balcony, tea in hand. For one quiet minute, retirement looks exactly like the brochure. He leans on the railing, looking out over a street that isn't technically his, in a life that finally has some room in it. Then he checks the mailbox on the way down and pulls out one envelope he already knows he doesn't want to open. It's the lease renewal, and there's one bill in this retirement that never actually retires. He sits down at the table with it, a calculator beside him, and the whole shape of the morning changes. This is the part nobody puts in the retirement brochures. The relaxed imagined version and the actual bill sitting on the table are not the same picture. He looks around the living room. Familiar furniture, familiar walls. None of it actually his. He runs a hand along the door frame without really thinking about it. A small habit in a place he doesn't get to keep forever. At dusk, he sits by the window, and the question this whole story is built around finally settles in properly. Can retirement ever really feel safe when you don't own the roof over your own head? So let's set the scene properly. He's 67, retired, and has around $350,000 in super. At 67, the age pension is finally part of the picture, the way it wasn't for a 60-year-old just starting the countdown. Commonwealth rent assistance enters too. Genuinely useful, just never quite as much help as the name makes it sound. For a homeowner, the big cost eventually finishes. For a renter, it never does. Rent isn't a phase of retirement, it's the whole structure underneath it. The pension lands in his account, right on schedule, and for a moment, it looks like plenty. Then rent takes its share first, before anything else even gets a turn. This is the actual truth hiding under the numbers. The real question was never his income. It's what's left of it after housing. The retirement standard for a homeowner living modestly is one number. For a renter doing the same thing, it's a noticeably bigger one. He isn't struggling in any dramatic sense. He's just exposed, in a way, a paid-off home simply doesn't allow. So here's the honest shape of this retirement. It can work, but it rests on more moving parts than a homeowner's version ever has to. Because this isn't meant to be a grim story. Most mornings, he walks down to the local bakery, same as anyone else would. One coffee, alone at an outdoor table, and it's a genuinely good 5 minutes. The public library becomes a regular stop. Free, quiet, and one of the few spaces retirement doesn't charge him for. A walk along the coast most afternoons. His knees complain a little. His budget never does. Back at the unit, dinner is simple. Small kitchen, small pot, nothing wasted. He eats alone by the window. Peaceful, mostly. Quietly lonely sometimes. Both things can be true on the same evening. He calls his daughter just to talk. It costs nothing, and it matters more than almost anything else on this list. She invites him to lunch. He says yes, the way he always does, but there's a small private calculation running underneath it now. He goes. Family lunch, easy conversation, and for an afternoon, none of the housing questions matter at all. He walks home afterward, leftovers in a bag. Good day, but this life never fully sets itself down and relaxes. Then the letter comes back around, and this time it's worse. The rent is going up. He runs the old rent against the new one on the calculator, and the gap is bigger than he'd hoped. For a homeowner, this moment doesn't exist. For him, it arrives on a schedule he never gets to set. He walks slowly through the unit, looking at it differently now. Familiar, still. Just not guaranteed. Keys in hand at the front door, and for the first time in a while, he genuinely isn't sure how long this address is his. An inspection is booked. He tidies everything, the way you do when a stranger is about to judge how you live. The property manager arrives with a clipboard, polite and brief. He answers questions about a home that was never really his to defend. It goes fine. Nothing changes today. But the relief afterward tells its own story about how much this weighs on him. Some nights, the stress isn't about a bill at all. It's just the not knowing, sitting quietly in the room with him. Because if rent climbs enough, this entire careful plan doesn't bend. it has to be rebuilt. So he starts doing something he never expected to do again in his 60s. Browsing rental listings. Similar places, similar size, and every single one costs more than what he's paying now. Apartment hunting at 67 doesn't feel exciting. It feels tiring in a way it never used to. He goes to an inspection, other prospective renters milling through the same rooms, sizing up the same modest space. It's smaller than his current place, and somehow still costs more. He folds a few cardboard boxes at home, just in case. Not packing yet, just no longer pretending it couldn't happen. He doesn't move. Not this time. But the threat alone has already done its work on how safe this all feels. He looks at outer suburbs on the map instead. Cheaper rent. Further out. A trade he's never had to consider before. Further out means cheaper. It also means further from the library, the coffee, the daughter, the whole life he's built here. That's the real cost of renting in retirement. Your home life stays partly negotiable, indefinitely. A homeowner mate invites him to a barbecue, and he goes, genuinely glad to be there. The talk turns to gardens, renovations, grandkids staying the weekend. He listens, smiling, a little outside the conversation, without quite saying why. Back home, he looks at his plain rental balcony and imagines, briefly, what he'd do with it if it were actually his. Instead, he buys a small plant. Low stakes, low cost, and entirely his choice in a place that mostly isn't. He sets it on the shelf and steps back. A small thing. It matters more than its size suggests. Some nights, it's just him, the couch, and the soft glow of the television. Independence and isolation sitting in the same room together. Then he shows up to the local bowls club anyway, because staying home every night was never actually the plan. Tea and easy conversation with people his own age. Cheap, and worth more than almost anything money buys. He isn't failing at this. He's adapting to it, the way people quietly do when the ground under them shifts slightly. Groceries on the counter, rent letter still sitting beside them. The emotional weight steps aside, and it's back to the maths. So let's actually look at how the money works, now that we understand what it feels like too. The pension helps. Rent assistance helps. Neither one makes rent disappear. They just make it survivable. His super stops being lifestyle money and quietly becomes something else. A buffer, held in reserve for whenever the gap gets wider. This is exactly why renters generally need a bigger number than homeowners for the same modest life. The housing line item never closes. He trims where he can. Comparing brands at the supermarket, the way anyone on a fixed income eventually learns to. But some costs simply don't move. The power bill, the pharmacy. They arrive whether the budget likes it or not. Unlike a homeowner's mortgage, his biggest cost has no finish line built into it at all. It simply continues. Still, this isn't hopeless. He balances the month and allows himself something close to satisfaction about it. The honest caveat is this. The plan holds together only as long as the rent stays roughly where it is and his spending stays modest. So renting doesn't automatically ruin a retirement. It just makes the whole thing considerably less forgiving. Move forward a few years. 72 now, more grey through his hair, walking slowly through the unit complex courtyard. Stairs matter more now. So does the lift, and how far the unit actually sits from anything useful. A routine visit to the pharmacist. Nothing dramatic, just the ordinary maintenance of getting older. Housing was always a financial question. Now, quietly, it's becoming a physical one too. He sits in his armchair and looks around, wondering honestly whether this unit still suits him 5 or 10 years from now. Downsizing is a strange idea when you never owned much space to begin with. There isn't much left to give up. He can picture a future version of this. Another move, another set of boxes, further down the line. Then he meets a friend for a walk along the strip, and the picture rebalances. Older renters still build routines, still build community. He reads by the window in the afternoon sun. Small, self-contained, and genuinely his own kind of peaceful. The less certain the housing, the more everything else quietly has to hold steady around it. A bright morning walk through the park, mid-70s now, and there's a genuine lightness to how he moves through it. A bench at the Botanic Garden. No rent letter in sight, just a good, ordinary hour. Lunch with family in the park again. The conversation is easy, and for now, that's the whole point. He walks back into the unit complex at sunset. Not a sad ending, just an honest one. Keys on the table, a soft exhale. Renting hasn't broken this retirement. It's just never let it fully relax either. The honest risks, stated plainly. Rent can rise. He could be asked to move. Health costs climb. And nobody knows exactly how long any of this needs to last. And the honest strengths, just as plainly. The pension, rent assistance, a modest super buffer, a genuinely simple lifestyle, and people around him who matter. This was never going to be a luxurious retirement. But sitting here now, tea in hand, it's a decent one. Genuinely decent. The money mattered every step of this story. But the real difference, the whole way through, was whether home ever felt secure. So no, he never owned the walls around him. But he built something steady inside them anyway. And that, in the end, was always the actual goal.